Well, good day, everybody. I've been thinking a lot about my own practice, my own meditations, and I wanted to share some of the processes or the experiences that I have had as I have been meditating and working on my practice. And I noticed this really over the last few days, but especially really when I think about yesterday's process, when I kind of stopped and reflected a little bit on the process. I had been feeling stuck, uh, working to try and do some writing to get that creative part of me out. And I had been feeling stuck. I had been trying to write a poem which was not coming together. I spent a couple of days playing with the language and nothing was working. Or every time I wrote it, I would get stuck in the middle. It seemed as if there was a fence around my mind, a fence around sort of that creativity that rather than being open, which is what I work towards as I work on my meditation, to be open to what's around me, I felt constrained as if I was pushing, as if I was almost trying too hard to get it out of me. And through that process of trying too hard, I actually was closing myself up. And I gave this a reasonable amount of thought. And I meditated yesterday morning specifically. And as I sat down to meditate, I sort of sat down and went through my usual sort of routine for me, sitting down, closing my eyes, attending to all the sensations around me, trying to be mindful of the feeling of sitting on my bed, leaning back so that my back is reasonably comfortable, which is what I need to do for myself. Relaxing my muscles, just letting everything sit. And then once I sort of got into that mode, started my breath, I just tried to let go. And what I mean by letting go is I tried not to push, I tried not to reach, I tried not to hold on to things. I really was trying to just engage in awareness and recognition. What was happening? What was I feeling? What were my physical sensations as a starting point? And once I felt grounded in that and grounded in my breath, where I was able to sort of trace my breath in and out and really focus to some extent on my breath, it was interesting. I just started to feel open. And it's really hard to describe what that openness was, but things started to come up, just things that were in there, things I was thinking about, things that I had been kind of feeling perhaps somewhat anxious about, somewhat worried about, and things in terms of anticipating how I would manage some things going forward. And they just started to rise, and I could see them. And I do sort of practice that visual in my head, whereas things come up, I almost try to put them on a little pedestal or on a table or somewhere in front of me to look at them and to separate myself from them. And it's very hard to describe that separating experience for me. I'm really not sure what words would be right, but for me, it's as if I just try to put things outside myself. And I put these things outside myself. And as I did this, things just sort of started coming up and opening up for me. And I just felt, and it's hard to describe this because it sort of sounds contrite or it sounds sort of cliche. I felt a little bit freer, and freer is probably not the best word, but rather than feeling constricted and tight, and as if I was almost pushing against a barrier to get through, like pushing a lawnmower uphill to get to the top of the hill with a lot of effort, the effort sort of diminished. That sense of having to find things or to figure out what to do as things arose and working to let them go, they just started to drift up. So I got into a fairly good sort of mental flow, a meditative flow, I think I would call it, for me anyway, from my perspective. I let things just be. I looked at them and I felt like I had a flow, almost as if there was a soft breeze blowing, and as things would get sort of lifted up off the ground or out of the trees, I could just sort of see them floating across from me. I was aware of my positioning and my body. I felt a sense of focus I had not felt in a while, in a week, maybe 2 weeks. Hard to know what that timing was. But that blockade, it felt to me like it melted, almost like we went from winter in my mind, where there were ice jams in there blocking things, to just allowing things to flow. Then I continued my meditation. I went for about a half an hour or so. When I finished, I felt fine. I felt good. I would say that I felt a little bit more relaxed, but that's really not the right word. I just felt a little evener. I felt a little bit more at ease. I felt a little more sort of in the world than fighting the world. In my experience, in my moment, in the day, rather than fighting the day as if I had to sort of slog my way through it. It was like the walking in a mud puddle, all of a sudden the mud dried and now I could walk evenly. And it wasn't as hard anymore to walk. And so I finished my meditation and I decided to work on my poem. But when I opened my notebook and I looked at what I had been working on, I decided that it was not there for me. And I had come up with another idea that had sort of crossed my consciousness, if you will, a number of times over the past couple of weeks, and maybe even further back than that, but had crossed my consciousness really strongly, succinctly. It really seemed present for me. And so I decided, okay, just sort of move on. And I sat down and I wrote a poem, and I wrote the poem very quickly for me. I wrote one draft. I looked at it. I sat with it for a little bit, which is my process. And I just sort of almost meditated on the words and the language. I just let them come to me. And I played with it a little bit. I rewrote it another time. I played with it a little more. I went down and I took it from my notebook to the computer, which is sort of a process for me. When I think it's close to ready, I go to the computer and I write it up. And I did that, and it came out pretty quickly. I showed my wife, who is I use as kind of an editor. She made a couple of comments, one in particular. I went back and I thought about her comment, and I played with the language around it that she had pointed out, and I found something that I think worked even better, and it was done. And so in the space of an hour, I was able to write a poem I was comfortable with, where in previous to this, the last couple of days, I had spent literally hours just trying to get the language right, writing and rewriting and rewriting. And so I thought that was just kind of interesting. And, I don't like to get too deep into the weeds here and say, well, I meditated, I freed myself up, and boom, I could write poetry. Because I think that's really not accurate. And that is really just kind of pushing something out there that maybe I'd like to believe, but I don't necessarily think that's the whole truth. I think what happened for me is that through the meditation process, I let go of trying so hard, of being so focused on getting the words right that I couldn't get them right, that I was overthinking, that my mind was restless in trying to write this. And when I let my mind go, when I let go of that restlessness, when the meditation helped me let go of that, if you will, monkey mind and that moving, I was able to get to a place where I was able to just see the feeling, sense the feeling, experience the feeling I was trying to get to, and to find the picture in my mind of how to lay it out and how to set it there. And so I talk about this because I think this is true in this example for me of writing this poem, but I think it's also has applicability that when we meditate and work on kind of just opening, allowing what's in there to rise, understanding and seeing where this is coming from, and not so much focusing on the idea, but for me, it was about being blocked. Something was constraining me, something was hindering my ability to sort of open up. And for me, I think it was a sense of restlessness with my mind, a sense of grasping too hard at it, wanting the product to be there. And I think we can take this as an example of perhaps other areas of our lives, other ways to use meditation to just open us up to see what's there and to allow us to um, allow us to just experience the moment, to be there, to be open to that moment. And in that way, it feels more free flowing. It's as if we can act without the tension. We can act without worrying so much about the outcome. We can act based on what we are actually seeing and allowing it to come out and responding to these things in a way, for me, that was more productive. And it's an ongoing process. I'm sure I will feel blocked at other times from other things, or tension, or tightness, or all of these emotions, all of these hindrances that cause us to struggle and feel dissatisfaction and question ourselves and feel doubt. But in that moment, I was able to let go. I think the meditation, the ability to just sort of free my mind up in a sense, to take the constraints away, to be in the place where it was really very helpful. And based on that, I felt that the meditation really helped me. And perhaps as you think about your own meditations, as you listen to this video, when you think about the things that run through your mind and the things that you work on, it gives you some framework to be able to move and to enhance your own practice as we go forward. So thank you very much for listening. I do appreciate that, and have yourself a very nice day.